Here's what's coming up.
Maybe for people who are not struggling with depression, cool. But if you're struggling with depression, no, don't do it.
Channel.
Hello everybody, if it's your first time watching, then welcome. Hit the like and subscribe button so that you can see more in the future. I'm going to be talking about something really big today, and I'm a little bit nervous, I won't lie. It's not really an easy topic to talk about, and I'm not sure why. All I do know is that for years it has plagued my mind about why it is that as human beings we kind of struggle to talk about our tough times in life. We struggle to talk about them not after the fact, while we're going through it. While we are going through things, we very rarely talk publicly about it, and it's only once a person is on the other side that you kind of feel comfortable to talk about how bad your tough times were. This hit me one day when I had gone out with a couple of my girlfriends after a period of a tough time, and I remember we're all out for drinks and all of this, and I'm telling them about how the last couple of months have been hell for me and yada yada yada, and I end off the entire story just saying but it's all good now, you guys don't need to worry about that anymore, everything's great now, yada yada. And one of my friends, or more than one at the table, were just they were well, that's great and all, but I'm actually offended that while you were going through this hell, you didn't reach out. You didn't why wouldn't you say anything? We could have helped you. We could have done this. We could have done. And I think really for me, that's where everything kind of started, where I started thinking a lot about why is it that when we're going through it, we don't really talk about it. We only tend to really, really be honest with other people about our tough times after, we've kind of struggled through it. In any case, this is a video I really have been thinking about doing, wanting to do for a very long time. I'm just starting here on YouTube, and I really don't know what exactly the format of my videos ought to be at this point. Even topic-wise, there's just so many things I'm really passionate about and love to talk about. So whatever, for now it just is what it is. We're all gonna have to just go with the flow. But today I do want to talk about depression, and in particular how I fought and beat my depression. But I do want to put a disclaimer to that title that I think it's an ongoing battle. I think on any day, at any point, there is the possibility of you spiraling back. And so it's a constant ongoing battle. It becomes less and less likely for you to kind of fall back into it. But I just want to say that, I definitely don't see myself at a point where I've beat it completely and it can never touch me again. There are definitely, there are triggers all day, every day. But I think it's just a matter of being consciously and constantly consciously aware of the fact that you're trying to get better, you're trying to be better, however shitty today was, tomorrow will be better. You know, a constant reminding of yourself of that. It's a scary story for me to tell, but I've decided I'm going to tell it because I do feel like I'm definitely in a much better place than I was last year, and it took me realizing a few things, learning a few things, applying certain things that I've learned, and as I say, just being aware of the fact that it's a constant, you know, it's just like exercise. It's like you can't just exercise for like 6 months and be like, okay, now I'm fit, I'm good now, you know, like you have to exercise forever. And so I feel like it's the same with your mind. Okay, so here goes. Here's my story. So in 2021, I realized that I was depressed. How did I know that I was depressed? Well, I felt like I had hit rock bottom. For the first time in my life, I just felt like I had no clear direction anymore. And my life was in a place I just never thought I would ever reach. I was lost and I lacked direction, like of where to go next in my life. I became pretty much a hermit. 2020 also contributed like massively to that. But I became pretty much a hermit not only because I was kind of like ashamed of myself and my life, and it wasn't just that I didn't want people to see me in that state, but I had also become so deathly afraid of making any moves, you know, in case I made any more mistakes. And I had just become a much more passive person, with very little will to live, really live life. Those who know me might say I had become a shell of the woman I was before. It had been a series of blows to my life. And for me, I felt like, at the time, I felt like it started off when I had fallen pregnant by a man who, I guess, simply had no intention of being a supportive co-parent to me or a present father to my son. I feel he completely led me on, you know, leading up to the day I actually gave birth. And I think it wasn't so much that he didn't want to be a part of me and my son's life that set me off. I think for me it was the fact that like he pretended that he would be there for us, you know, from the day we found out that we were pregnant up until the day the baby was born. And I think it was mostly the fact that he didn't ever outrightly say to me, you know what, Lou, I don't want this life. You know, because I definitely do feel like that's a whole different story. You know, if you had told me from the beginning that like, yo man, I don't want this, I can't, yada yada, that's a whole different story. But like, this was not that, okay? It was the fact that he just ghosted me and I had to figure it all out on my own. I became very, 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 very angry about that. You know, the never-ending questions in my mind of like, why, how did this happen? I went crazy. Like, I was not okay. I'll admit that. And I'll talk about that in another video, because since I've lived through it and seen for myself now what drives the baby mama crazy, I think it's important to discuss, because a lot of people like to assume that it's a simple and clear-cut case of, you know, a man moving on with another woman that makes a baby mama be bitter and crazy. And you know what? I just feel like it's really so much deeper than that. And if these are the excuses that men are going to continue hiding behind, that, oh, she's crazy, you know what I mean? When really, you know that it's so much deeper than that. That is something I definitely will talk about in the future. Moving on, the next blow that completely knocked me to the floor and just left me crawling for dear life. I lost my father, my rock, my protector, my safe place. He was literally my everything. So when he passed away, wow, like the biggest knock for me in life, right? And that also happened like just 2 weeks before my son's first birthday. So yeah, it was heavy. Looking back, I don't feel like I had the space to grieve for him properly. You know, I felt like I immediately had to like move on, get up, be strong, you know, or at least pretend to. And I just had to look as if I was keeping it together, you know, when I really wasn't. For months, I would dream about my father, and every morning when I wake up, I'd have to deal with the harsh reality that it was just a dream and that I would never see him in real life ever again, you know. It felt like I was living on another planet, and like all I wanted was for someone to pick me up and take me back to that planet where I could see my father walking and talking again. I was only 27 years old at the time, and I had already lost both my parents. I was a single mother and I had no safety net, you know. In the same year, I ended up losing my car because I could not keep up with the payments. And then 2 years later, I got evicted from my apartment pretty much for the same reason. So I had started slacking in my business, okay, and eventually even gave it up. Well, not gave it up, I kind of put it on the shelf, you know, because I had actually just given up on life, truthfully. This is now in 2021, the year that I realized, you know, that shit is falling off, okay, that your girl was falling off the wagon. It took me some 9 to 10 months to realize that I was just no longer the woman that I used to really enjoy being, you know. I was now another woman who I didn't actually enjoy being at all, and I just knew that that needed to change. But still, the change was not coming. As you know, in these 9 to 10 months, I knew it, I was aware of it, but nothing was really happening. Then one day, I slipped down a small flight of steps and I fractured a bone in my toe on my right leg. And I was put in a cast for 6 weeks, and after the cast came off, I was on crutches for about another 6 months. I had to visit a physio every month, and I also got an amazing prescription of a bunch of pain medication, right, which included tryptoline. And my doctor told me that this was for pain. The doctor said that this tryptoline would make me extremely drowsy and that it was a very, very strong, you know, pain med. So he was like, you know, only take it at night, like before bed, and like only if you're like really, 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 you know, in pain. The first time I drank this tryptoline, I slept a sleep that azange ka irobala in my entire life, like the best sleep of my life. Okay, I just remember I felt so good the next morning. I was like in a good mood. Skip to a few weeks later, I have one of my best friends' wedding to go to in Cape Town, and I'm in Durban at the time. Okay, so I have to do airport missions and whatnot, you know, a crutch, you know, fine. I get there. My other best friend is a bridesmaid at the wedding, so we both meet up at the airport in Cape Town, and we travel together to the accommodation venue. Something Manage. I wish I remember the name of this place. That place was gorgeous, like immaculate, you know, exquisite, honey. it was just like, oof. I remember we had a butler for the weekend. It was just such a lovely venue. Anyways, I'm there hobbling around Gakrachi, so it's hard to ignore the topic of my toe, right? So at one point, I'm telling my girls about like how this tryptoline, this drug that I got prescribed for pain, is like the one. I'm telling them how I've never had anything like it, blah, blah, blah. And one of my besties, who so happens to be a doctor, she goes, tryptoline is an antidepressant, right? And I was like, no, like my doctor just said it was for pain. Anyway, she confirms that it is actually an antidepressant. And I swear it was like a light bulb moment. I eventually realized that I had been on this antidepressant for like 6 weeks. And it was just like, no wonder I was feeling better again. No wonder I was thinking of new business ideas again and really taking the necessary actions that I needed to be taking to change my life. During the same time, another very close friend introduced me to this quote that I think also like contributed to changing my life. And I have to say this, being on tryptoline for those 6 weeks definitely changed my life. I also want to say I never would have classed myself as a person who would be open to taking antidepressants. I certainly never would have sought them. I never would have gone to any doctor and been like, hey doctor, can I please have an antidepressant? I don't think I would have done that. So I mean, I'm grateful I broke my toe. You know what I mean? If that's what it had to take for me to get those meds, for me to realize maybe how really, I'm going to use the word sick, but I'm going to say sick I was. Life changer, okay? And I have to say, you would have never caught me dead in a doctor's office asking for it, okay? And so I'm saying that because if you're that type of person, then maybe just reconsider. You know what I mean? Just reconsider that stance. So anyways, at the same time, a very close friend of mine introduced me to this quote that I think changed my life. The quote is, nothing changes if nothing changes. Oh my God. Oh, so simple, but so mind-blowing. And so that was the beginning of me taking action to change things for myself. Here's the catch though. You don't just go from being depressed one day to taking a life-changing action the next day. It's a process. So if you or a loved one is like dealing with depression, my disclaimer is to be patient with yourself or with them. It's a process. And there are a few things that often need to take place before you can say goodbye to your depression. For example, saying goodbye to the things that are actually depressing you. One of the first things that I did was to get rid of toxicity and negativity in my life. As if I didn't feel bad enough about myself and my life already. I had these people in my life who posed as friends and family, who from my point of view did not show me the empathy and compassion that I feel I would have shown to another person who was in my shoes. There were also people who took advantage of my weaknesses and vulnerabilities, people who abandoned me when I needed them the most. But I think what hurt the most of all was the people who became cruel and like nasty to me when I was at my lowest. I felt like my flame was burning out. I had no more fire in me, and those who know me, I'm a very, very fiery person. I just had no more fire in me, and when I needed people to really rally around me and bring that fire back to life, there were certain people who chose to throw water instead. And I felt like I had to put an end to that. Like, stop dousing my flames, dude. My confidence was low enough as it was. Like, the last thing I needed was for people who I loved and who claimed to love me back to be the ones contributing to my demise, to to my self-esteem going lower and lower and lower, I had to cut them off, and I feel better for it. I now feel free of their judgment and negative comments about my life, and truthfully, my soul is at peace. Like, I am okay, you know? I don't hate anybody. I don't wish anybody bad. But I have cut you out of my life, and I don't, like, I have no desire to, like, pull you back into it. Like, no, it's okay. Stay where you are. I also want to add that it's not just people that can be toxic. It can also be your own behaviors and habits that are actually toxic, in the sense that they hold you back. They hold you back from taking the actions that you need to be taking, you know. In my case, for example, I was smoking weed every day, and it wasn't until I stopped smoking every day that I realized how I was actually using my high to kind of numb the pain that I was feeling. And also to ignore things that I should have been facing head on. Getting high every day was clouding my judgment and my ability to make healthy decisions. Sex was another one. I definitely used sex as a way to escape reality, and as it was a quick fix, you know, to feel good again. But of course, it only worked temporarily. So I had to be honest with myself about all of that and realize that, like, if I really wanted to be better, I had to cut that out. So I did. And it wasn't easy, I'll say that. I definitely had to call on my self-discipline to do that successfully. Once I had done that, I had to now raise my own confidence and self-esteem. This was probably the most important and hardest lesson for me, because prior to all these like negative things happening in my life, my self-esteem for the most part came from the outside, you know. It came from the area I lived in, the cars I used to drive, the attention that I would get from men, the people that I associated with, and like just all the people around me who would constantly affirm for me how great and wonderful and beautiful I was. My father being my biggest supporter and cheerleader. You know, he was my constant supply for a confidence boost. So after he passed, I actually crumbled into a big ball of shame because I didn't know like where I would find that again. For the first time in my life, I had to learn how to be confident and have a high self-esteem without any car, without a place to call home, without any family to back me up, without anybody to tell me you're beautiful, you're amazing every day, you know. And believe me when I say I searched high and low seeking for external validation. I just needed somebody to tell me that everything was going to be okay and that I would still be able to achieve all my goals and dreams even though my life had been flipped upside down. So when I say it was a long and hard lesson for me, like, believe that, okay? Because it took me a very long time to realize that I could tell myself all these things, you know, and that I didn't need these words to come from anybody else. I had to practice being nicer to myself, being more patient with myself, and stop doubting myself and putting myself down. Yes, I had gotten myself in a mess, but I had to be positive about the fact that you will fix this. Things will get better. I had to stop apologizing for where my life was at and just embrace that I was there for a reason. I had to stop wishing to go back to the past, you know, when things, going back to when things were better. I had to learn how to look forward with hope and accept that, like, my life was not over, you know, that I still had a lot of life to live. It took a long time for me to learn and realize all of this. It did not happen overnight, and I had to work at it constantly. I had to catch myself when I was talking to myself negatively, and I still have to. I still have to do that. I had to affirm and reaffirm that my goals and dreams were worthy, that they were not far-fetched or like out of reach, okay? Because I believed that if God put them in my head, then He would make them possible in front of my eyes, okay? I had to repeat these words to myself over and over, day in and day out, in the mirror and in my head, and it was work. But I had to do the work to get myself out of a negative space in my mind. Which brings me to point number 3, transmuting negative emotions into positive emotions. Everyone strives to be intelligent. And usually when we talk of intelligence, we're referring to like intellectual intelligence. But it's very rare that you'll hear people talking of or striving for emotional intelligence. Even though, in my opinion, it contributes massively to like every human being's behavior and capacity to relate to other humans. If you've never researched or like dug deep into what emotional intelligence is, I suggest you do. And if you already have, then I implore you to continue to exercise your emotional intelligence just as much as you exercise and strive to improve on your intellectual intelligence. There's something new to learn every day, so there's always room to improve. With relation to depression though, emotional intelligence taught me how to like tap into my emotions. By tap in, I mean if I am feeling sad, it's important for me to like recognize the sadness first of all and meet it where it is. What I used to do before was I would see sadness and I would run away to go and try and find happiness as quickly as possible. But when you are emotionally intelligent, you're not scared of your negative emotions. That is sadness, shame, guilt, anger, jealousy, frustration, you name it, okay? You do not run and hide from those emotions. You go and you meet your sadness and you spend time with your sadness. You delve deep into what is causing this sadness. You ask yourself, when last did I feel this way? What has made me feel this way in the past? What is making me feel this way now? How do I behave when I feel this way? Why do I behave this way? Is it helpful for me to behave this way? Or does my behavior just bring on even more negativity? You just talk to yourself, you know what I mean? You just talk to yourself and ask yourself questions and you answer them back. Next time I feel this sadness, how can I change my behavior in a way that I can feel proud of? Ask yourself these questions and you listen to your answers. You question yourself some more and you debate yourself. As crazy as it may sound, I believe that only once you are able to have these kind of like honest conversations with yourself about your emotions and the behaviors that arise out of those emotions, only then can you like successfully transmute those negative emotions into happier, more positive feelings and emotions. This will ultimately lead you to behaving in ways that brings more happiness and positivity into your reality. I mean, isn't that the goal? You're depressed because you're just sad and negative all the time. So, I mean, what you want to do is be bringing a lot more happiness and positivity into your reality. For me, in this way, I learned how to turn my fear, right? So I had fear about how my life was turning out. And I had to turn that into excitement about the future. Excitement about the unknown. Like, yeah, it's still scary, but it's exciting. You know what I mean? It's like, you just have to flip that negative into a positive. That's alchemy. You have to alchemize these emotions. You know, I had to learn how to turn my doubts about my capability into hope. You know, doubtful, hopeful. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doubting, but I hope. You know what I mean? There's definitely like a vibrational difference there. So you have to turn that doubt into hope. I had to turn pain and sadness about the things that I had gone through into gratefulness. Okay, do you understand? Like, you grateful for all the lessons. I had to be grateful for all the lessons that were leading me to become this better person. Do you understand? It's the same situation, it's just a different mindset application. Okay, you're looking at the same situation, but instead of feeling pain and sadness about it, you're saying, you know what, I'm grateful for this because it's grown me into a bigger and better person. And slowly but surely, every day and in every way, my life started to become better and better. The next thing I felt I had to do was exercise my mind and nurture my soul. Once you have practiced the art of recognizing, meeting, and releasing your emotions in an appropriate manner, okay, you will start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, you become aware that your emotions are completely within your control, and it doesn't matter if somebody stepped on your toes or shouted at you or talked behind your back or took advantage of you or broke your heart. How you react to that is completely within your control, and you can either act a fool about it, keep complaining about the pain, or you can walk away from whatever is hurting you long enough to meet that pain, talk to it, and take your time deciding how you would like to react to the situation in a way that brings you peace of mind, happiness, joy, peace of mind. Because I feel it's only when you have peace of mind that you can start to use the mind more purposefully. What do I mean when I say more purposefully? Well, I mean that you start thinking more intentionally and deliberately. Random thoughts may still pop into your head, except now they have to go through a toll gate every time. They have to go through a toll gate, your thoughts, where they will be asked, is this thought conducive to the future I am trying to move towards? Is this thought taking me up or down the emotional scale? Okay. Ultimately, does this thought make me feel good or bad? Okay. And based on the answers to these questions, you can either choose to prolong and dwell in that thought, or you'll choose to discard it and replace it with something else that does meet the criteria. Now, what I'm talking about is, like, for example, let's take my own personal situation of having a child with someone and basically being abandoned by that person. You know, this person who you thought or trusted, that I thought we were in this together, you know, and they just kind of like leave you hanging. When I think about that situation now, I'm grateful. I have to be grateful about that situation. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was sad. But I have gone through a process within my mind that whenever I do think about that situation, I'm grateful it happened. It made me the woman who I am today. It made me the mother that I am today. And I'm grateful for that. Point, period, blank, full stop, like, draw a line under it. That's it. I don't have anything bad to say about the situation because I don't have anything bad to think about that situation. All the bad thoughts get stopped at that toll gate. I do not allow them to fester in my mind. You just cannot absolutely entertain anything that is causing you to be depressed. You cannot entertain it in your mind at all. And that is deliberate thinking. And the more you practice this, the more you train your subconscious to do the same. See, for a lot of us, we struggle with self-esteem and various other issues because of what is ingrained in our subconscious minds. minds, okay? Everything that exists in the subconscious is a culmination of things our parents, our teachers, our religious leaders, whoever was impressionable on us, they impressed upon us, okay? Or the things that we saw on TV that impressed us at one point or another. And the subconscious expresses itself in I can only just say in mysterious ways. You know, that's why people spend thousands and thousands monthly to go and see psychologists and spiritual consultants and the like, to decipher these like messages from the subconscious, because it communicates very mysteriously. And if you have the money to go and see an expert every week, then that's great. Do that. I recommend it. But if you don't, then my advice to you is to study and observe your own mind. Read books about the mind. Google search academic articles or research papers about the mind. Listen to what experts who have been studying the mind for decades have to say on the matter. Compare opinions. Study your own mind. Don't just study your mind. Protect it too. Be deliberate and watch what you put into your mind. Horror movies are fun to watch, but when it's the last thing you do before bed, you're actually setting those fearful thoughts and ideas into your subconscious. And I personally don't think that's a healthy practice. Maybe for people who are not struggling with depression, cool. But if you're struggling with depression, no, don't do it. Next time you go into YouTube, look for lectures about how the brain works, and just things of that nature. The more you empower yourself with this knowledge, the sooner you will be able to use your mind to get you out of a seemingly impossible situation. And this goes all hand in hand with nurturing your soul by feeding it with wholesome and like delicious content. You know, take walks in nature, find your peace, find your happy place. This keeps the nasty, negative, down, spirally thoughts, you know, away from you. You don't need that. And if you're depressed, you have to take desperate measures to just like completely block all of that out. I believe the brain is the smartest computer that ever existed, and it can do wondrous things for you and your life if you would take the time to learn how to use it more purposefully. Last one, making bold decisions and taking action. As soon as you've started to find your confidence, you've learned how to regulate your emotions, you've rid your life of negative people and behaviors and energies, and you've started to grasp the inner workings of the mind. Only then will it make sense to start taking bold decisions and taking action towards living a happier life. A happier life for you may look like having a supportive partner in your life. And so in that case, a bold decision would be to put yourself out there again, and taking action would look like getting dressed to kill and attending social events that you would normally shy away from in your depressed state. For me, it was a bunch of things, not all of which I'm prepared to talk about today. But I did have to take some bold decisions. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I was staying in Durban at the time. And for a long time, my soul had just been calling me to move up to Johannesburg for a very long time. And I didn't, I delayed because of very compelling reasons. And so I ignored it. I ignored my impulse. But as I say, I eventually had to realize that these are the things that keep me in depression. It's when you come up with a really great idea, or you have an impulse to do something that your soul is telling you deep down inside, like, hey, this is gonna light our fire again. And you just ignore it. You're like, no, I'm not moving. I'm fine right here. I'm okay. I'm not doing anything right now. It's wild. Listen to me, depression is wild. It's very hard to, even a person who's been through it, it's hard to explain why you act the way you act sometimes. Why you keep on doing this thing that is not helping your life in any way, or why are you so afraid to take a step forward? I don't know. Okay, all I do know is that you have to fight. You have to fight. These are my tips for how to fight, how to get there. I don't know if I can say if it's a step by step, or you can do some of these little actions like concurrently, but amen, that's what I have for you. It's been your girl, Lady Lou, and I love you guys. I'll see you in the next video.